Today's first presentation comes from Danish biotech Curasight, and here to present them is CEO Ulrik Krasilnikov and CSO Andreas Kjær. Welcome, gentlemen, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for being invited to this BioStock live pitch. And today I will present the Curasight opportunity for you, together with my partner Andreas Kjær. So first of all, we have a disclaimer just saying that we are not able to predict the future, so you have to make your own assumptions. The highlights, when we take a view of Curasight, is a Danish clinical phase 2 company founded back in 2013. It's based on more than 20 years of research at Radionuclide, headed by Andreas Kjær. Furthermore, uTrace is a platform within imaging and within several cancer forms. Furthermore, that it has been testing in 8 ongoing clinical trials in phase 2, meaning that we also have been testing in more than 400 patients at Radionuclide. So it seems to be a very well-proven and safe tracer we have developed. We expect to tap into a rapidly growing market, growing from around $5 billion in 2017, and this is expected to grow to around $26 billion in 2030. So also from a commercial perspective, very interesting. We have a very strong IP position, meaning that we also have issued patents in both US and in EU, which can emphasize and support our commercial strategy going forward. So now we are raising funds by participating at the Spotlight stock market here in the beginning of October, where we are going for raising around 96 million Danish crowns. And for that we were, among others, raising funding for conducting a phase 3 imaging study within brain cancer. Besides, we also will pursue the therapeutic option within brain cancer and make it ready to go in patients. So just to give you an idea of what is Curasight, what is the technology, we have prepared a small movie for you to give you an overview.
More than 50% of all cancer patients will at some time receive external radiation therapy. However, traditional radiation therapy also irradiates healthy tissue, leading to serious side effects. This limits the use and impact of the therapy. Curasight has developed a new type of radiation therapy that solves this problem. Curasight's technology builds on the principle called targeted radionuclide therapy. Here, the patient is not irradiated from the outside, but instead a compound is injected into a blood vessel from where it automatically seeks out the cancer and any metastasis, and from there sends out radiation. The range of the radiation is just 1 millimeter, and therefore only the cancer and not the healthy tissue is irradiated. In contrast to traditional radiation therapy, Curasight's method can also be used to treat patients with widespread disease. Our compound targets UPAR, a receptor expressed in cancers, but not in normal tissue. But how can we know if the therapy reaches the cancer? The answer is with imaging. Using the exact same UPAR targeting compound as for therapy, but modified for imaging, we can exactly predict where the therapy will work. This is called the Theragnostic principle. By starting with imaging, only patients with a clear tumor uptake will proceed to targeted radionuclide therapy. This is personalized, tailored therapy. Although UPAR theragnostics can be used in most tumors, we will start with glioblastoma, an aggressive brain tumor, as a first indication. Glioblastoma has a poor prognosis, with half of all patients dying within 1 year. 10% of these patients are children. Curasight now raises funds for development of a theranostic platform and for the first clinical testing in brain cancer patients. We are heading for an initial public offering on Spotlight, and you are invited to join us.
Okay, I hope this movie gave you an overview of the technology and what we are aiming for. What is the company strategy going forward for the next 5 years? If you first take the next 3 years, what we are raising funding for, then we will go for brain cancer, the aggressive part named Glioblastoma. We will conduct the phase 3 imaging study obtaining an FDA approval. And furthermore, we will go for the preclinical testing for radiotherapy in new treat with brain cancer also. And then we will prepare the clinical trial application for the prostate cancer in phase 3 imaging part. On top of that, we also will go for the business development and partnering activities. That will cover the 96 million we are raising right now. And then in the beginning of Q1 2024, we expect to raise additional funds to complete the brain cancer phase 1-2 in therapy, and also the imaging part within prostate cancer to obtain a FDA approval. Looking at the nuclear medicine market, then it's very interesting how it develops, and looking at the growth factors, it's based on aging population, also the increasing of number of cancers, besides the wide use of nuclear medicine around the world. That is some of the growth factors. It can then be divided up in both the diagnostic part and the therapy part, where we have a smaller increase in the diagnostic part, but if you take a look at the therapy part, then it will grow rapidly. And that is also why we are pursuing the Theragnostics platform, where we combine the diagnostic part together with the therapy. And if we take brain cancer as a single indication, the market size of that, then it can be divided up again for the imaging part, the diagnostic purpose, and then the therapy part. And for the imaging part, we expect that there will be around 65,000 new cases each year when we look at US and EU together. And based on the reimbursement codes, which is using today, both in EU and in US, we expect the market to be around 200,000 or 200 million euro totally a year. But if we move into the therapy part, then it's totally different, and because the reimbursement codes are different, and then we expect to reaching into a market totally of 11 billion euros annually. So if we just can get 5 to 10% of this market, it will still be a fantastic case. Yes, then I will give the word to Andreas Kjær, who will tell more about the technology and the biology behind.
Thank you very much, Ulrik. Yes, so I'm happy to present a little bit about the technology that Curasight is based on. And the target we are approaching, both for imaging and therapy, is called UPAR. It's a unique biomarker of cancer, which means it's expressed on cancer and not other tissues. And it's highly expressed if the cancer is aggressive. So we can not only visualize the cancer, but also tell something about the cancer. Also, as a target for therapy, we then can irradiate the most aggressive cancer cells. Another advantage of UPAR is that it's expressed across cancer forms and not only in a particular cancer form, but I'll come back to that. The technology of Curasight, the imaging part, uTRACE, is tested and has been tested in many different cancer forms. And here you can just see an overview of both academic studies and Curasight studies. And you can see there are various cancers. What is highlighted in orange and green is really what we are now raising money for. That is imaging to take it through phase 3 in brain cancer, and on the therapeutic option to develop this preclinically. But again, remember the technology works across cancer forms. And as mentioned, we will start out in brain cancer. And why is this? First of all, we have now data that shows that our technology works really well in brain cancer. But it's also because it's very severe disease where little happened over the last 15 years. It's the most common primary brain cancer. There are a total of 65,000 cases in the US and EU alone, and 10% of these cases are in children. The radiation therapy is standard for these patients, which means that when we develop targeted radionuclide therapy, we don't have to convince the doctors that they should use radiation therapy. We are basically changing the type of radiation therapy. And as was also showed in the movie, the prognosis is really poor. It's around 1 year survival, and after 5 years, almost everybody are dead. So there's really an unmet need here to improve the therapy and the imaging, the diagnostic workout of these patients. And this is the very reason why we are pursuing this area. And we are doing it in 2 ways. This was also shown in the movie, but we can repeat it here. We are developing Theragnostics, and that is a combination of a diagnostic part and a therapeutic part. You trace for imaging and you treat for therapy. The nice thing about having a theranostic pair is by doing imaging, you can exactly predict where the therapy will go because you use the same compound, you just load it with 2 different types of radioactivity. For therapy, a harmful, and for imaging, a harmless type. And this is just to show you an image of a patient. This is a cross-section of a brain. You can see the white part in the center, that is the brain tumor, the glioblastoma. And on the right, you can see how U-trace is taken up. So the red area is where you have most activity. So we can demonstrate here that we can visualize the brain tumor, and there's a large uptake in the tumor. This can actually be used to predict that if this had been the therapeutic part, the U-treat, it would have gone exactly in the same places. So therefore, it's very likely that it will work in such a patient. The principle and the advantage of doing targeted radionuclide therapy rather than external beam therapy, what we today call radiotherapy, is that you don't irradiate the healthy tissue. When you do external radiation therapy, you irradiate from the outside, from different angles, but you will irradiate on its way into the tumor, it irradiates healthy tissue. In targeted radionuclide therapy, you inject the radiation therapy and it will then seek to the tumor cells and bind there. It will bind to any cancer cell. So also patients with widespread disease and dissemination, you can treat in this way. This is not possible with external radiation therapy. So many consider this as radiation therapy of tomorrow. It's a much more gentle way to deliver radiation therapy in patients. For brain cancer, this is just an illustration of what I just mentioned. Conventional radiation therapy, you irradiate from different angles. It sums up in the tumor, that is what is marked red on the left, but you can see the rest of the brain get larger or lower the amounts of radiation also. And very often this decides when you have to stop, when the healthy tissue can take no more radiation with all the side effects. When you do targeted radionuclide therapy, as you see it on the right, the radiation therapy seeks automatically to the tumor and delivers very little radiation to healthy tissue. So a much more gentle principle that allows for more effective radiotherapy. And again, this is the image you already saw, but when we are talking about treatment and you use a companion diagnostic, the same compound for imaging before, you can say that what you see is what you treat. In this case, where it's red is where the therapy will go, and you can see the large area of normal brain that are totally dark here. There you won't get any radiation therapy. So this is why we think this can be game-changing and hopefully really benefit these patients with a disease with poor prognosis today. The other indication we will start preparing also with this investment we are raising now is prostate cancer. In prostate cancer, the big challenge is that you can remove the prostate gland if there's a tumor in it. But you do this far too often. And the reason you do this is that it's difficult to predict whether a tumor will develop into an aggressive form. The problem by removing too many prostate glands is that 70% of these patients will become impotent to some degree. So it's not just for fun to remove a prostate gland that should not have been removed. And with our technology, we really hope to be able to, with imaging, to see whether a tumor is aggressive or not, whether it's likely that it will develop into an aggressive form, and thereby the ones that are not aggressive, to leave them in place and save the patient of unnecessary side effect in the form of impotence, and in some cases also bleeding with the operation. So we expect much of this, but more is to come along this line. This is to show you how it looks. The red arrows delineates the prostate gland. That's not the tumor, that's the whole prostate gland. And the dark part on the middle image is where the cancer is. And on the right, the two images have been overlaid on each other. So you can see here, this is a tumor that lights heavily up. This tumor needs to be removed. A tumor that could have exactly the same size in another patient and not lightening up is a tumor that should be left alone and saving the patient for unnecessary side effect. So we hope that we can also improve outcome and especially limit side effects for this population of patients. And then I hand over to Ulrik to give an overview of our plans and where we stand today.
Thank you. Yeah, just to highlight for you the milestones we expect to achieve. The orange color boxes is for the U-Trace, which is for the diagnostic purpose, and the green one is U-Treat within the therapy part. So already when we go into the new year, 2021, we expect to publish the results from the phase 2b study in brain cancer. And also when we look in 2021, we will initiate the preclinical study within the therapy when we go into brain cancer, which is expected to be finalized in the second part of 2022. Furthermore, moving into 2022, we expect to initiate the study within brain cancer, the phase 3 study, which is supposed to be a multi-center study and also with representation in the US, which is expected to be finalized in the end of 2023. And then we expect that to reach the new year of 2024, where we will go for new funding to conduct the rest of the milestones. So, but first now we are focusing on the first part, so that is what we are aiming for achieving right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a very interesting presentation. So you told us a lot about your product, but could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the team behind the company, maybe?
Yeah, if I take myself first, then I have a little diversified background. I'm certified public accountant, and besides I'm also engineering. On top of that, I have an MBA, and that is also reflected in my career, that I have been in various positions in big international companies, but also been 10 years in the private equity industry before I moved into the pharma industry. And the 4.5 years I've been in Curasight. So, yeah.
A little bit very diversified.
Very diversified, but useful, I would say.
Definitely. So. Accountants are always useful.
Yes.
Of course.
Definitely.
Yeah. And what about your team?
Then we of course have Andreas Kjær at my side. So
my background, I'm a medical doctor and a professor at the University of Copenhagen and chief physician at the Rigshospitalet, the National University Hospital of Denmark. And basically I've been working with cancer imaging since I became a professor, and the technology that Curasight is built on is really what we developed over the last many years, an effort of a large team. And now, of course, if you want your technologies to come out and help patients for real, you have to take them, you have to commercialize them and get them approved, because that kind of funding is not possible within the academic system. And therefore, I'm one of the co-founders of Curasight back in 2013.
Then I think you're also ideally placed to answer my next question. So with uTRACE, you can visualize the cancer. How does this differ from existing methods?
Yeah, that's an extremely good question, because PET has really been game-changing within cancer. Typically, PET is mostly done with a sugar analog called FDG. And it's extremely good to localize the cancer and see how much spread there is, what we call staging. But uPAR is not going into this. What uPAR or uTRACE does is that it describes what type of cancer it is. It's the aggressiveness. So you can have other cancers, you can identify them, but you don't know whether one is aggressive and will develop and spread, and one will stay there. So it's a biological characterization of the cancer.
Right. You also mentioned in the presentation the Theragnostics Concept. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
This is a really game-changing concept, and I'm a firm believer in that this is the radiation therapy of tomorrow. The nice thing is that, first of all, you can target, as was demonstrated and shown, spread disease. But in our particular technology, uTREAT, you also have to think that since uPAR is the more aggressive the cancer cells are, the more highly expressed uPAR is. So when you inject uTREAT, then the more aggressive the cancer cells are, the more irradiation they get. So we get an intelligent distribution of the radiation therapy, even within the tumor, so that the most aggressive parts gets the most. And this is why outcome is expected to be extremely good with few side effects, because it's mainly in the tumor and not in the background. And the combination of the two, the theranostic or the companion diagnostic concept, really is that if you were to give the imaging tracer and you saw no uptake in a cancer, then you know you would not move into the therapeutic option because it won't get there. So we can almost 100% predict, will our therapy get into the cancer, and thereby improving the amount of patient that will respond.
And there does seem to be a significant interest, because at the moment uTRACE is being tested in 8 clinical studies. Can you tell us a bit about the data that's come from that?
I mean, and these are both academic and studies Curasight are involved in. Yes, they are across cancers and actually look at different areas. One is, can this be used as a target for therapy? And there we have data from these preliminary data from these different cancer types. We can see that there are several promising indications for the targeted radiotherapy. We also have data that shows that it is very prognostic. So we can use uTRACE for what is called risk stratifying, see which patients are most at risk, and they should be treated more aggressive than patients that are at lower risk. So yes, the data keep coming in, and we learn more and more about where to use it. Of course, it also teaches where not to use it, but most of the data have been very promising. So it's really a platform, not a single cancer indication technology.
If we turn to the more business side of things, what does the competition in this area look like?
When we are looking at uPAR as a target, there are no other companies working within this radionuclide therapy area. So right now, there are no other competitors in that field.
And in terms, you talked about the market, but in terms of geography, is there any markets that are of particular interest to you?
It's very much reflected also in our IP strategy, because we have used quite a lot of resources and efforts to have a well-extended patent strategy and portfolio. And that covers, among others, the US market and the European market, as they are very mature markets also, I would say. So that is the markets we will go for at the first step.
Like you mentioned, you're carrying out an issue of units. Can you tell us a bit about how the money will be used?
First of all, we will focus mainly on the brain cancer for the first part, and that will be to conduct the phase 3 study within imaging for diagnostic purpose in brain cancer. And then we will also conduct the preclinical study in therapy for brain cancer, also to prepare for going into patients for within a year or two. So, and then we also have a extended portfolio of other indications, which we of course will try to develop aside also. So, but the main focus will be on brain cancer as a first step, because there is really an unmet medical need in this area.
Yeah. And in connection with this, you're also intending to list the company. How come you've made that decision now?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, the company was founded 2013, and I mean, we did a lot of work on the basic part, also a large academic effort, really to demonstrate and being convinced about the technology. And we are really convinced about the viability of it. And now we wanted to take it to the next step. And that needs substantial funding, and that's why we now are going for a listing. But it also, I mean, there are other ways you could raise funds, venture capital and other things. And we, by purpose, picked the IPO and the Spotlight Stock Exchange because this gives us, it's really a platform. As you could see from the amount of phase 2 studies performed, we will not stop these 2 cancer indications we talked about today. And if we want to fully unfold that potential, we need to be able to go out and raise money. If we say now there's a third indication we really want to pursue, we wouldn't like to be limited by the investors we have on board. And there, the stock market and the general population as investors is a very strong way to do it. So that's why we did it. And Spotlight we did because we think it's wonderful that we have this opportunity to be listed and be traded among Swedes and Danes. So we have a larger market. And I think, I mean, the interest has been really big. I guess also because we really want to do something for cancer patients. So, and with the help of the investors and the team on board and all the studies we are doing, we hope to make this come through in the not too far future.
And speaking of the not too far future, a final question. If we just look to the next, say, 12 months, what milestones can the investors expect?
First of all, we expect to publish the results for two studies, the phase 2 study from brain cancer in imaging, and also the phase 2 study in prostate cancer. And then we also expect to initiate the preclinical study in therapy in brain cancer. So that will be the efforts we will go for right now. So.
Well, it sounds like you have an exciting time ahead then. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.